Welcome to this explainer. Right off the bat, I want you to just stop and listen to the heartbeat of your own impatience for a second. We've all felt it, right? If you're feeling burned out, rushed, or like you're constantly playing catch-up, I promise you, you are not alone. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating clinical diagnosis of modern exhaustion. We're going to look at how to actually master the rhythm of your own life. So get ready to completely rethink everything you thought you knew about being on time. I mean, have you ever wondered why your absolute most desperate efforts often just result in complete exhaustion? Why the world seems to move to this rhythm that always leaves you, I don't know, 1 second too early or maybe one heartbeat too late? It's like you're running a race you've already lost before you even hit the starting line. Well, in the clinical reality of the archive, we definitely don't just write this off as bad luck. We call it a mechanical failure. Specifically, we call that failure neural latency. And look, this isn't some moral failing on your part, it's literally a neurological glitch. Think of it like this. You are essentially a biological machine, but you're running on a delayed signal. You're processing the past and you're calling it the present. So by the time your intent actually reaches your hands, the opportunity has already decayed into ash. Because of this glitch, most of us end up living in a permanent state of temporal debt. We're frantically trying to catch a train that left the station while we were still, processing the sound of the whistle. So what's causing this? Well, the primary failure of the unrefined mind is this kind of pathological obsession with clock time. We are completely conditioned to believe that time is a linear constant, right? Just flowing completely outside of us. But here's the thing, you're wrong. For the biological host, for you and me, time is actually a synaptic construction. It's a neurological window. And that window either opens beautifully to allow for absolute peak performance, or it slams shut and traps you in the friction of the mundane. And because of this glitch, your nervous system is just perpetually out of sync with the high-status frequencies of reality. Here's a quote that really hits the nail on the head. When you react with haste, you are not being fast, you are being loud. Let that sink in for a second. Haste is literally the signature of prey. It is the vibration of an organism terrified of being caught by the future. So every single reactionary panic decision you make, that is a massive withdrawal from your metabolic gold. Can you actually feel that drag in your own day-to-day life? That feeling is the viscosity of an ill-timed life. The archive actually quantifies this systemic failure. They call it the coefficient of temporal friction. Basically, it means that the harder you try to rush the process, the harder the universe pushes back against you. It's like you're out there trying to swim against a tide that you haven't even learned how to read yet. And listen, this friction, it's not an accident. The system, what the text ominously refers to as the Leviathan, absolutely thrives on your hurry. It uses this manufactured illusion of constant urgency to ensure you never, ever have the stillness required to see the actual opening. Because think about it, a host that is always hurrying, always frantically putting out one fire after the next, is a host that never stops to observe the architecture of the trap they're in. You're out there spending your life force fighting the clock, when you really should be learning how to dismantle it. Okay, so how do we actually fix this? Well, the archive demands a total liquidation of this reactionary chaos. The rule is simple. Before you can win, you must first learn how to wait. But hold on, we are definitely not talking about the waiting of the victim here. That's just frantic motion, stressing out, constantly checking the clock. No, we are talking about the waiting of the predator. It's that deliberate, incredibly potent stillness that precedes the strike. Making this transition all starts with what's called the law of mass decoupling. It's kind of like a hummingbird, right? Its wings are beating frantically, like 80 times a second, but its head stays completely, perfectly still so it can feed. You've got to intentionally reach that speed of deep focus, where the loud ticking of the public clock literally loses its grip on your soul. Once you stop reacting to the frantic rhythm of the outside world, you begin to actually sense your own internal pulse. You stop fearing the wait, and you finally begin to master the pause. Now, we have to make a really profound distinction here between two things that look practically identical from the outside. Hesitation is a failure of the will. It's freezing up out of fear. But strategic stillness, that is a mastery of the rhythm. And when you master that rhythm, you enter this incredible state of sovereign flow. In that state, you aren't desperately chasing the moment anymore. You literally become the moment. Of course, the system is going to try to shame you into speeding up. It'll tell you you're falling behind. It'll point to the frantic progress of the herd just to make you feel stagnant. But I want you to remember this. Real power is entirely indifferent to the pace of the masses. The text points out that the most devastating movements in history were not the fastest, but the most precisely timed. A true architect aligns their entire metabolic potential with the exact microsecond of the future. They don't fight the curve. They become the straight line that pierces it perfectly. All right, let's get practical. How do we actually achieve this alignment? The source gives us a brilliant 3-step clinical prescription, and it's called the Protocol of Bio-rhythmic Leverage. This is basically your blueprint for claiming temporal sovereignty. So let's break down exactly how you can execute these 3 steps in your own life. Step 1 is the liquidation of urgency. This means you have to relentlessly audit every single impulse that screams at you to act immediately. If you trace that impulse back and find it's born from fear or maybe social pressure, that is a parasite. You have to seal the gates against it. Just let the frantic noise of the world pass right over you like smoke. Stop reacting to everybody else's manufactured emergencies. Moving on to step 2, the art of the synaptic window. This is all about recognition, not rushing. You need to actively scan your environment. You're looking for specific markers. Is there a sudden stillness in the air? Are the variables naturally aligning around you? And honestly, most importantly, is there an absolute silence from your own internal doubt? When those 3 things perfectly align, that is your signal. The window is open. And finally, step 3 is nurturing the Chronos key. This is where you unlock the part of your mind that exists totally outside of clock time. It's embracing the profound understanding that a real, lasting legacy isn't built by frantically running on a hamster wheel day in and day out. Not at all. A legacy is claimed in a single, perfectly timed breath. So I really want you to ask yourself, what if the clock is just a lie and you actually aren't late at all? I know the pressure of the passing years can feel like this massive, heavy weight sitting on your chest, but based on the clinical reality we've just unpacked today, the timeline they sold you is a complete illusion. You aren't falling behind. You are simply waiting for your signal to clear. Do not let the hurry of the mediocre steal the gold of your potential. Take a deep breath right now. Really feel the stillness of the internal fortress you're actively building. The world can scream at your gates all at once, but it literally cannot force you to move until you are completely 100% ready. You are the architect of the strike. So stay patient, stay incredibly sharp. The opening is coming, and when it finally does, you won't even need to rush because you're already going to be there. The future belongs to those who know when to arrive. So I'll leave you with this one thought. When you wake up tomorrow morning, are you going to keep running the Leviathan's frantic race, or will you finally start waiting like a predator? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep mastering your rhythm, and I'll catch you next time. Listen to the heartbeat of your own impatience right now. Just listen to it. Tick, tick, tick. Pretty stressful, right? Today, we're diving straight into a brand new explainer, based on the source text from the archive. We're going to break down this brilliant analysis of exactly why you always feel so incredibly rushed, and more importantly, how to actually make it stop. Because, let's be real, we live in a world with a frantic heartbeat. It's just this constant buzzing anxiety that demands we move faster, reply quicker, and hustle way harder. It honestly feels like we're running a relentless sprint just to stay in the exact same place. So, have you ever actually stopped to wonder why your most desperate efforts so often result in absolutely nothing but pure exhaustion? Like, why does the world seem to move in this rhythm that always leaves you 1 second too early or maybe 1 heartbeat too late? You know that feeling, right? You feel like you're constantly behind, just struggling to catch a train that has literally already left the station while you're still out there processing the sound of the whistle. Well, the source material tells us that in the clinical reality of the archive, they don't just write this off as bad luck. No way. They actually have a very specific term for it. And that term is neural latency. What's truly fascinating about this concept is the massive paradigm shift it demands from us. The primary failure of the unrefined mind is this, honestly, pathological obsession with linear clock time. You probably believe time is just this linear constant, right? Something flowing outside of you. But according to our source, that's completely wrong. For the biological host, for us, time is actually a synaptic construction. It's a neurological window that either opens up to allow peak performance or it slams shut to trap you. When you're suffering from neural latency, you're living in a permanent state of temporal dead. You become this biological machine running on a delayed signal, processing the past and then calling it the present. By the time your intent actually reaches your hands, the opportunity has already decayed into ash. And the absolute most crucial point here, reacting with haste doesn't actually make you fast, it just makes you loud. Can you feel the drag of that loudness? It's intense. Our source quantifies this systemic failure through something called the coefficient of temporal friction, which is a mouthful, I know, but it perfectly captures the viscosity of an ill-timed life. Think about it for a second. The more you rush, the more the universe actively resists you. It's like you're trying to swim against a tide that you haven't even learned how to read yet. Haste ultimately is the signature vibration of an organism that is terrified of the future. It's literally the signature of prey. And every single reactionary decision you make while in this state, it's just a massive withdrawal from your own metabolic gold. Which brings us to Section 1, Escaping the Leviathan's Rush. Let's break down exactly how this trap works. The source refers to the overarching antagonist of our time as the Leviathan. The Leviathan will constantly attempt to shame you into speed. It'll whisper that you are falling behind. It will shove the frantic progress of the herd right in your face, just to make you feel stagnant and inadequate. But listen, this is a simulation. It is a simulation specifically designed to break your internal boundary. It keeps you so unbelievably busy fighting the clock, masking the trap with all this frantic motion, that you never actually realize you shouldn't be fighting the clock at all. You should be learning how to totally dismantle it. So, how do we fix this? That leads us to Section 2, Achieving Sovereign Flow. The transition from being a victim of time to becoming the true architect of your timing begins with the law of mass decoupling. Basically, you must reach a speed of focus where the ticking of the public clock completely loses its grip on you. It no longer finds purchase on your soul. This is the ultimate reclamation of the temporal advantage. Because once you finally stop reacting to that chaotic external rhythm, you begin to truly sense the internal pulse of the singularity. In the clinical reality of the archive, we do not fear the wait. We master the pause. Because there is a profound, absolutely massive difference between hesitation and strategic stillness. Hesitation is a failure of the will. It's born entirely out of fear. Stillness, on the other hand, is a mastery of the rhythm. It is the waiting of the predator, that quiet stillness that immediately precedes the strike. This is what we call the state of sovereign flow. When you're in this state, you are no longer chasing the moment. You literally are the moment. Now let's get into the how-to in Section 3, the protocol of bio-rhythmic leverage. To actually claim your sovereignty, you must implement the protocol of bio-rhythmic leverage. The explainer outlines 3 distinct steps for this: the liquidation of urgency, the art of the synaptic window, and finally, nurturing the chronos key. Let's break down exactly what each of these 3 phases actually means for you as you become the architect of your own timing. Step 1 is the liquidation of urgency. You need to relentlessly audit every single impulse that tells you to act immediately. Ask yourself, why am I rushing? Because if the impulse is born from fear or from social pressure, it is a parasite. Pure and simple. You have to seal the gates against it. Just let the frantic noise of the outside world pass over you like smoke. Do not engage with it. Moving on to Step 2, you must practice the art of the synaptic window. This is where you learn to recognize the very specific physiological markers of the opening. It's a palpable feeling. You'll notice a sudden stillness in the air. You'll see the exact alignment of all the variables. And most importantly, you will feel the absolute silence of your own doubt. That's your window. And Step 3 is nurturing the chronos key. The chronos key is essentially the part of your mind that exists completely outside of standard clock time. It is that deep, quiet part of you that intuitively knows a legacy is not built in a single day, but rather it is claimed in a single breath. All of this culminates in Section 4, the master of the interval. You see, real power is completely indifferent to the pace of the masses. If you look back, the most devastating movements in history were not the fastest, but rather the most precisely timed. The source text points out that by age 45, the architect who has truly mastered the neurobiology of timing essentially becomes a ghost in the machinery of the world. They appear to be standing totally still, while they are actually aligning their entire metabolic potential with the inevitable path of the future. They do not fight the curve. They are the straight line that pierces it at exactly the right microseconds. My dear friend, I know the world feels like a race you are losing right now. I know the pressure of the years feels like a heavy weight sitting right on your chest. But I am here to tell you, based on the wisdom of this source text, that the clock is a lie. You are not late. You are just waiting for your signal to clear. Do not let the hurry of the mediocre steal the absolute gold of your potential. Just take a deep breath, feel the stillness of the fortress you are building around yourself. The world can scream at your gates all at once, but it absolutely cannot force you to move until you are completely ready. You are the master of the interval. You are the architect of the strike. I am here in the silence of the archive, reading the rhythm of your awakening. Stay patient. Stay sharp. The opening is coming. And when it finally does, you will not need to rush. You will simply be there. Take a deep breath. You are home. Leave a sign of your stillness below, because I am reading. Sleep well, architect. The future belongs to those who know when to arrive. So the ultimate question remains: are you ready to stop running and finally arrive?